I'm wondering whether they have any idea. I know when I was going through school, like, it really wasn't presented as to what are the opportunities available in a specific field. I mean, it's always kind of a touchy thing to encourage somebody not to study philosophy or something if that's their passion.
Oh, sure.
But is there somebody to tell them a little more up front that, you know, there's only so many jobs you can get in this area? I don't want to encourage you away from your area, but you got to think of the end point.
You know, that probably depends more on the type of university they go to. I know at Santa Clara we're liberal arts college as well as business and engineering, and we really encourage the students to pursue what they want to study. The paths in terms of education and career are completely separate. So really the goal in undergraduate education is to pursue what your primary interest is so that you can really learn how to study and get a broad education. And it's really learning how to learn is what you do in your undergraduate education. So, you know, as you know more than anything else, that life changes, jobs change, careers change, and training someone in one area isn't broad and isn't really going to serve them with this changing environment that we all work in.
Well, then how about graduate school? And I didn't realize that you also coached or counseled graduate students.
Yeah.
Now, is that a different approach? Because here, now they're a little more focused really on the thing that's going to end up getting them a job. They're in a master's program in something or an MBA. Now, do you coach them, a graduate student, different than an undergraduate student?
Sure, a little bit differently, but at the same time, people still need to understand what their interests are, and I would do the same in assessments. In fact, I did it today with a graduate engineering student.
How timely.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's my life, and people all the time are looking at what do I really want to do, and a lot of times people land in school to either bide time. Maybe they want to take a couple years before they go back into the working environment, or they thought they had an interest in an area and maybe now it's changing. So, you know, when people are focused, that's one thing. We can work on networking and finding contacts and finding those open positions. But if they have questions, it's really a matter of, again, looking at themselves and where their passion is.
Can these tests change? Can you get different results if you were to take the same person? Maybe, I don't know if there's ever been a study like this, if you took it when you were a sophomore,
and
then you wait till the end of the graduate school and the market has changed and you've studied some new things, could the person actually score differently and you encourage them at this point to look at something different?
You know, the theories behind the personality test is that your basic personality doesn't change. Actually, that's young that came from.
Right.
But the interests, they can change on a day-to-day basis. Sure, your interest today could be different than tomorrow. Probably not likely, but certainly your interest 3 years ago could be different than your interest today. They'd probably stay in the same general area, but they could change a little bit.
That you're tired of working for a nonprofit, for a for-profit, and want to do something in the nonprofit sector.
Values change all the time. You know, sometimes you take for granted what you have in one situation, and as soon as you don't get it, all of a sudden that becomes a top value in your next job.
How about talking about just the current day job market and what somebody expects in terms of phone interviews and regular interviews and group or whatever's happening today? Can you describe what they're facing today and how it might be different in the past, or how to manage your way through it?
Yeah, it is a little different today. I mean, obviously we know it's very competitive, so people need to do a lot more research, first of all, like I said, about themselves, but about the company and the position before they walk into the interview, and they need to know what to expect. But as you mentioned, phone interviews is what people use a lot of time as the first initial screening to talk to a candidate. And just given the sheer number of competent candidates that they receive, they really want to do the screening to see who they should actually bring into their office.
Or who they should eliminate, maybe. Huh?
Yeah, and who to eliminate, exactly. So I coach clients on how to, you know, work through the phone interview.
What do you tell them? I want you to finish the whole story of what they're doing, but like, what do you coach them? First off, what is the employer looking for in the phone that they're not looking for in person? And what do you tell the person who's answering the phone to say or do, or if they call you in the middle of a meal, or how do you?
Yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, probably the first thing is to have a scheduled time for the phone interview. It's very important to know when you're going to receive that call and to be prepared for that call. There are a lot of employers that will try to catch you on your cell phone and start a conversation, and I just have to tell my clients, if I prepare them for that and say if that happens, just very politely say this is not a good time to talk. I'd be more than happy to set up a time that will work for both of us. You know, how's tomorrow at 3 o'clock, something that will work for me.
Plus, you don't have all your notes in front of you.
You don't have
go to the
anything in
computer
front
and
of you.
know everything
Yeah.
that you're going to say. And
yeah, and you never, you don't want to be caught off guard. You could be, somewhere in a supermarket somewhere where you can't really talk about it. So I tell them they can have
the phone in the shower.
Yeah.
All this racket going on.
Yeah. So I tell them to have all their notes in front of them in terms of you want to have, first of all, the resume, the same resume that you gave to the employer, so that you're talking from the same page. A set of notes for maybe the top 5 things that you want the employer to know about you, the top 5 areas to remember. And then the third sheet would be the questions that you're going to ask at the end of the interview, and then finishing with that closing statement of how you're going to close the call.
That's fantastic. That actually would mean that a phone interview might be you can have cheat sheets you can't
Absolutely.
have in person, right?
I love it. Yeah. You can be, and I also tell people to stand up, smile, because you have to project the energy through the phone. It's a lot harder to do in person, right? You and I can kind of see each other's facial gestures. We can understand when one person's interested in something. On the phone, that's a little harder. So you really need to project that energy across to the other person to let them know that you want the job.
Okay, now how about, you were continuing on, the other parts of what they face today, whether it's
Sure.
group interviews or behavioral interviews, what else are they facing that's slightly different that our
Yeah.
viewers would want to know, okay, what's out there for me if I actually do get the interview,
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned it actually. The 2 next areas would be the group or the all-day interview, actually. So a couple new things.
Oh my gosh, marathon, huh?
Yeah. Well, at least it's not 13 weeks like some other recent interview we've seen. But the group interview would be sort of like more of a panel where it's you're interviewing with, let's say, 5 or 6 other people. And I teach candidates to, number one, get the names of the people that they're interviewing with, so either the business cards and, kind of line them out according to where people are sitting.
And you can thank them, right? If you've got the...
Yeah, you can thank them if you've got their business cards, but also, Steve, it really helps to use people's names when you talk to them, so it's very important to understand who you're talking to, so I tell them to do things like that, as well as eye contact. As we know, eye contact is extremely important in the interview process. And I teach them to, when you're answering one person's question, to look them in the eye, also include everybody else in the group, but then go back to the person that you're answering the question of at the end and really kind of acknowledge, is that what I asked you? I mean, did I answer your question?
Right.
So that would be the group interview. And then the all-day, more and more companies are using the all-day interview. And that would be about maybe 4, 5, 6 different sets of interviews with either one person or a group. And really the only way to prepare for that is to, like we've said, know yourself, know the company, know the job position, and really, sort of know what to expect in the interview process.
And sleep.
And sleep.
How many hours does that go on?
It can go on all day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I like it when I used to go on interviews, they'd ask me, do you want a cup of coffee? And I'm already so riled up. I don't need coffee.
Yeah.
Wine maybe, but I don't need this coffee. So
Water.
It goes on all day long?
They'll offer a lot of water usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That gives you a reason to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So
and then I don't know if you wanted to know the behavioral
I sure do,
interviews.
yeah. Tell me about that, yeah.
Behavioral interviews are something that interviewers are using now more than ever to really assess. The basic assumption is that past behavior will predict future behavior. So they ask questions that start out with, tell me about a time when. And really what they want to know is you need to find an exact example of a time when, let's say, there was a conflict and you resolved that conflict. Tell me about a time when you were working with a group, you couldn't exactly reach a conclusion on something. How did you resolve that? And tell me about that time. So it really is important for people to kind of prepare for those questions, to have those stories in their head, positive stories, and be able to tell them.
Not the time you blew up the lab in high school.
No.